All right, it is Wednesday, May 14th, and let's find out what happened with George Gerbil what happened with the joyful jelly jars when he went to check on them as his mother asked him to? I don't know. So get your word building pace. Word building pace number 10. And turn to this page. We left off with page 15 where they had made the jelly. And then George went to look at the jelly. And what did he find out? So follow along with me. All right, you ready? Page 16. George Gerbil and his family were going to make joyful gerbil jelly to help needy families. What a nice idea. Isn't that awesome? So George Gerbil and Ginger Gerbil were in the berry patch. George Gerbil and Ginger Gerbil were picking large, juicy berries for jelly. While they were working, a giant, hungry hawk almost grabbed George Gerbil. George Gerbil and Ginger Gerbil brought the huge berries safely back to the cage. George Gerbil helped Mama Gerbil and Ginger Gerbil to make 4 jars of joyful gerbil jelly. Mama Gerbil put the 4 jars. Mama put the 4 jars of the joyful gerbil jelly out on the cage porch to cool. Then the gerbil's telephone jangled. Jing, jing, jing. Papa Gerbil called to give Mama Gerbil a message. A gentleman would soon drive up in his Jeep. This gentleman needed 4 jars of joyful gerbil jelly for a needy family. He needed the 4 jars. But when George Gerbil went to check on the jelly, he was surprised. Instead of 4 jars of jelly, how many are there? 1, 2, 3. Oh! When George went to check on the jelly, he was surprised. Instead of 4 jelly jars on the porch, there were only 3. George Gerbil scratched his furry head. Oh dear, what has happened to our other jar of joyful gerbil jelly? Ginger Gerbil scratched her head. I cannot imagine or think what has happened. And Mama Gerbil looked up the street. Oh, here comes the gentleman in his Jeep. We will just have to give him 3 jars of joyful gerbil jelly. Mama Gerbil planned, tomorrow we will just have to make more jars of jelly for needy families. George Gerbil and Ginger Gerbil nodded. Okay. Mama Gerbil had done the right thing. The next day, the Gerbils made 4 more jars of joyful gerbil jelly. 4 jars of jelly were placed on the cage porch to cool. But when a brown badger came to get some jelly for his needy family, only 3 jars were left. Turn to page 17. What is happening? What is happening to our jars of jelly? Asked George Gerbil. I'm going to watch our jelly jars very carefully tomorrow. The next day, the Gerbils made 4 more jars of joyful gerbil jelly. 4 more jars of jelly were placed out on the cage porch to cool. George Gerbil peeked out the large cage window every few minutes. George Gerbil looked at the 4 jars of jelly again and again. All 4 jars of jelly are there, George Gerbil called to Mama Gerbil and Ginger Gerbil. But when a brown and white giraffe came to get jelly for her family, only 3 jars of jelly were left. What is going on? So, jing, 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 went Mama Gerbil's little bell. Mama Gerbil called a meeting. George Gerbil and Ginger Gerbil, I have been helping you to learn to think, said Mama Gerbil. So George Gerbil nodded his head. Ginger Gerbil nodded her head too. Well, continued Mama, now is a time we must think very hard. We just must find out where our other jars of joyful gerbil jelly are going. What do you think? I will not budge from this bridge until we solve the mystery of the missing jelly, said George Gerbil as he sat on the gerbil bridge. What do you think is happening to our jars of jelly? Asked Ginger Gerbil as she sat on the gerbil wheel. Perhaps some juggler is using them to juggle, said Mama Gerbil just for fun. Well, perhaps some jungle bird thinks his family needs our joyful gerbil jelly, said Ginger Gerbil, flapping her front legs like wings. I know, said George Gerbil with a big grin. Major General Gerald Jones is building a large bridge for his army jeeps. He is using joyful gerbil jelly to hold the bricks together. And George Gerbil laughed and giggled and jiggled so hard he rolled over. Oh my, chuckled Mama Gerbil as she wiped happy tears out of her eyes. George Gerbil, nudge yourself off the gerbil bridge. Ha ha ha. You may go outside with Ginger Gerbil to look for clues. I will look for clues inside the cage. So George Gerbil ran across the little gerbil bridge. Ginger Gerbil jumped off the gerbil wheel. George Gerbil joined paws with Ginger Gerbil as they walked down the path together. Look for clues, George Gerbil, Ginger Gerbil reminded her little brother as they trudged along. Trudged, they walked slowly, looking carefully. They trudged along. George Gerbil looked under some shiny rocks. Ginger Gerbil scampered to look behind a little juniper bush. George Gerbil looked up and down, and Ginger Gerbil looked to the left and to the right. George Gerbil and Ginger Gerbil looked all around, but they did not see any clues. George Gerbil and Ginger Gerbil could not tell what was happening to their joyful jelly. They could not tell what was happening to their joyful gerbil jelly. Look at page 18. They've looked all around, haven't they? Now what are they doing? They are thinking. George Gerbil and Ginger Gerbil had walked into some tall grass. The green grass was much taller than George Gerbil and Ginger Gerbil. George Gerbil looked all around. All George Gerbil could see was tall, green grass. Where are we, Ginger Gerbil? Asked George Gerbil. Well, said Ginger Gerbil, George Gerbil's lip began to quiver. Are we lost? Ginger Gerbil, are we lost? You'll have to come back tomorrow to find out. Are they lost? What happened to the joyful gerbil jelly jars? We'll find out tomorrow, my friends. But stay tuned. It's time for questions and vocabulary, building our words. See you back in a minute.